On today's pod, I spoke with my longtime friend Joseph Cobhams. Joseph is a senior software engineer at HelloFresh Canada. Enjoy.
I guess
Well, I'm glad I finally have you here.
good things are worth the wait.
Good things, nonsense. Anyways, to get right into it, I guess the first question that has been on my mind. I know we talk almost all the time,
Mm.
but I've always been fascinated how by how much work you get done, and you still find time to keep in touch with people. You're still social with those who you want to be social with, and all of that. Well, for me, sometimes I have to like cut everyone off almost to just focus. How do you, but it feels like you don't need to cut anybody off, you don't need to be off of Twitter. How do you manage to block time out and actually focus and do work?
Uh, I've not really given that conscious thought the way you've painted it. I, for me, work is something I enjoy doing. Except I'm doing something very tedious and mundane before it would require an extra effort for me to focus. The moment I sit in front of a computer, I have a problem in front of me, I just dive right into it. There are few things that can break my focus on my cycle. That'll be, well, maybe when I'm hungry or family needs my time or baby needs my time or I'm just not enjoying what I'm doing. For the rest of it, it's balancing and rotating the thing. There are days that I set out to be like deep focus. Well, almost every of my days deep focus work. I have something to do, get in there, get it done, and I work within blocks of hours, or that's how I break my day down. Each 24 hours, each 24 hour in a day, or each day, sorry, is broken down into 3 or 4 hour blocks. This 3 hour, I want to get this thing done. The next 3 hours, I want to get this thing done. This other 3 hours, I want to sleep or eat or decompress or reach out to people, chit chat. So it's block of hours for me.
3 hour blocks.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something before the 3 hour blocks, which was unless you're not doing tedious and mundane work, you generally can focus. But
Yeah.
even with like office work, it sometimes gets tedious and mundane. Very little task, maybe something more administrative than actual code work.
Yeah.
How do you get that done?
So for the not so exciting task, I play scenarios in my head, like existential type of scenarios. I overstretch my imagination. Say I want to fix a small button somewhere. And yes, it's something that could get done in maybe under 2 or 3 hours. And I'm just tired and lazy to do that thing. I tell myself stuff like, if I don't fix this, then somebody would assume this button means something else and they'll click on it and it will lead to this catastrophic or disastrous failure that will cascade into other things. Like, okay, I don't want that. Let's prevent that. Let me go fix that button. I'll do that. For more administrative things, it's a need to happen. I just tell myself, yep, this needs to happen. I need to have one on one with my people. I need to check in and see if there's problems or issues. I need to fill out someone's performance review or something like that. It's something that needs to happen. And I assume or I imagine if I was the person on the receiving end and my boss was just being, "Well, this thing is boring. I don't want to get it done." I don't think I would like that very much. So let me not be that boss that blocks somebody else too. Yeah.
One thing is focus, like I said, but another thing I've always found very true with you is your constant desire to improve. I would always remember when Was he OOP now to structured or from structured to OOP?
With PHP,
When I know,
now switching from procedural
yeah,
PHP to OOP, yeah.
yes, and I think this was 300 or 400 level.
Yeah.
I never really understood why you felt the need to stress then. Like, guy, you already know this thing. Why are you even going to stress? But that has been something you've always done. And I can this like a couple of other instances where that has happened. But I remember asking you about this thing one time when we were on the phone and you said improvement is making new mistakes. And I found that really fascinating. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Constantly improving is constantly pushing the limits of what you know. And there's no way you'd venture into something you don't know without making mistakes. So if you're okay with the knowledge that in my attempt to write a more efficient code or routine, there's a chance I break something. Or in my attempt to learn robotics, for instance, I could mess up my computer or OS or hard disk or blow a fuse or something like that. So once you agree and accept that improvement is making small mistakes over time, and then you just keep pushing it. And you don't want to wake up one day and find yourself outdated. With with technology, things move at lightning speed. You could know a certain version of something today and you feel comfortable doing it. You're crushing it, you're steady, constantly delivering on it. 6 months fly past, 1 year fly past. You keep doing what you're doing, only for you to move or change jobs or find yourself in a different place. There is a different version of that thing. You're 3 versions late and you're completely lost. You don't know what could have changed. So while I have to deliver the day to day, I try to stay ahead of the curve. Where is the tech going? Where is this tool language going? Where is the world going generally?
Are you always in the mood to learn something new and make those mistakes? When you have some sort of block,
Hmm.
do you ever really have a block to learning per se? And if so, like how do you keep yourself motivated on track really? Like,
I have plenty of those learning blocks. The most recent one is what Golang. I first tried to learn that thing. I think that was in 2017. I went headfirst into it. Like, okay, I know PHP, I know some Python, I know some fundamentals of integers and strings and all whatnot. Okay, let's go write Go the way I would write PHP. And it was a brutal experience. After like 2 months of trying, like, okay, this language is not for me. First off, why would you define your variables the opposite way? Some people, other languages that I know, put the thing before the data type, and you put data type before the thing. Like the block is constant; it would be there for every new thing you're learning. How I deal with it is, I get to that point, I feel okay. I've pushed like 110%. Maybe I'm pushing it in the wrong direction. Let me take a step back. Let me go and look at something else. I think I left that. I went to look at Scala. Started doing some read up on Scala, installed the runtime, playing around with it. A year passed by. I came back to Go. Let me give this another try from a different perspective. Let me not think about Go as a PHP program. Let's think about Go as maybe a Python program. What are the similarities between Go and Python? Can I leverage that as my way in to understand the thing? And it's easier that way. Every time you approach the same problem with a different perspective, you unconsciously, without even knowing it, you're solving little bits of it as you move through. Eventually it just feels like the light bulb turns on and everything just makes sense suddenly. I don't think everything suddenly made sense. I think all the little parts of the puzzle you've been solving just came together at that moment. So when those blocks happen, take a break, take a chill, go do something else, go learn something else, go try something else, and come back to it in a month, a year, whenever it's convenient or comfortable.
yeah, I think it's a very Sometimes, I mean, like, yes, with podcasting, for example, I mean, the first time I opened Adobe Audition, I remember being very, very overwhelmed. I won't consider myself um a novice with tech in any form, but I remember being, oh man, like this feels like so much. I closed it and I came back. But I agree, like learning those little things, sometimes I think it is impatience, right? Like maybe, or generally I think it is always impatience where you feel you should spend very little time learning something entirely new.
Yeah. I mean, with me, one thing I know I'm guilty of is I get overconfident. Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard, right? It's still data types, it's still algorithms, it's still ones and zeros. So it shouldn't be that hard. And I skip some of the intro courses or steps and feel, I know up to a certain level. I shouldn't I shouldn't bother myself on knowing exactly how a language implements a list. So let me just know a list exists and jump straight into it. That confidence can bite. It's good at some times when I've gone into it. Like once you jump in with that level of confidence and the thing presents to be tougher than you initially estimated, it could really demoralize you and make you completely stop learning.
True. We just one last thing on that with Figma. When I joined Canva uses Figma to design, and I had always been a sketch person. So, I mean, it was never a factor during the interview process, anyways. But when I joined and it was time to actually do work, I saw Figma and I was like, okay, well, Figma, here we go. One thing I didn't do was to go and try to understand how Figma works. I mean, they are both design tools, but there's always going to be very little nuance, that if you don't actually look for to learn, you'd always be using the longer road to solving that thing, even if you do it. So it's always better to like maybe
True.
go to the basics and like build from there up. Also,
Yeah, read the documentation.
yeah. I was listening to a podcast. It was Conor McGregor was the person that was being interviewed. No, I think it was Dana White, the UFC president. Um, he was asked about what motivates him and how he manages to keep growing the company, and he mentioned something about standards, right? And he said one of the first things to do if you want to get better is to raise your standards. And I'm saying this because I remember one time we're in a conversation and you said something that I quoted, and it is that for something to be okay, it needs to be a little above okay for me. And it just sort of makes sense that you're raising the bar really, really high. Could you just talk me through like what
Okay.
standards mean? What standards mean in terms of, or what significance they hold in terms of how you hold yourself and how you hold others?
Uh, First off, I've been accused of having incredibly high standards or near perfection level of expectation from people. I feel for standards, it's from my perspective, it should be a thing of common sense. First off, you should look at something and say, "This is good, but could it be better?" That is just simple reasoning to me. If there is a chance that something could be better, why is it not better? If it's not better, can I improve it? Whoever made this thing, is there a reason? Did they know it could be better? If they did, why didn't they push to that level? So when I interact with people and someone conveys that perception across to me that they knew this thing could be better, but for some reason they chose not to, just makes me feel, were you just tired or lazy or not motivated enough to push that limit? And I hold myself to that kind of level of expectation. I can obsess and tweak and tweak and tweak and engineer something to the point that I ask, could this be better? And I don't see any other way I could improve this. Now, it's a trade-off of getting something out and what's the word they use now? Finishing and not. I can't remember how they phrase it, but it's a trade-off between getting something done versus getting something perfect. There has to be a delicate balance between the two. There are times where there's priority on something, it needs to be out the door ASAP. I would do the best I can in the short amount of time and put it out to whoever needs this thing. These are the possible areas of improvement. Now that is not taking away from my standards. That is me saying I'm making a compromise. I know it could be better. This is what it looks like if you allow time for it to be better. But for the sakes of time and delivering value to users or customers or business needs or whatever, this is as good as I can get within the time provided. Standards are relative across people. What I may think or what I may hold to be high standard, someone may just be like, yeah, this is not good enough. I need you to deliver three times this quality for me to give you 1 point for it. And to someone else, it may be three times this is your exceeding expectation. It cannot get better than this.
That's interesting. How do you manage communicate? How do you manage to communicate what your standard is to your team members? Because I know you're a team lead.
The easiest way is to show by doing, right? I take up a task, I build out or deliver the task and put it out there and say, hey, come and review this thing. Let's take a look and let me know what areas you think needs improvement. Now, depending on who is doing the review for you, if the person is really junior, chances are they may not see some things because they just don't have that level of experience to see those kind of cases or conditions yet. But if your reviewer is someone about your level or more than your level, they could look through it and point one or two things. So for me, a good signal that something has been delivered to the best possible level of standards would be the fewer number of correct, redo, change you need to make. And this is not a hard and fast rule. This is not a blanket rule that would fit any situation. It's just a personal thing to me. It signifies or indicates to me that whatever edge cases I could have caught, you have caught it or you have thought about it and corrected for it. So me reviewing this, except ignoring things like maybe syntax here and there, using an if instead of a for loop, things like that, ignoring those kinds of syntax, but business logic or domain logic or problem solutioning, the fewer corrections or edge cases I can spot or other reviewers can spot, the more or the higher the confidence level that you have thought about this thing deeply and accounted for it. So if I set the standards by doing it myself at least the first few times or setting the foundation, it I find it easier that the team just aligns easier because you can't tell someone go do something to a certain level when you're not directly leading that charge or showing that you as well you understand what you're asking. So it's easier to show or communicate the standards by leading it or example. Yeah.
Just excuse me, a bit of a backstory. Me and Cobhams actually went to university together and were roommates through university. I think the only time I think even in 100 level while we're on campus, our rooms were close together, and you're one of the biggest reasons why I picked up graphic design. It feels like I would have found it eventually, but I think you sped up that process, right? You advised me to like put good use to my computer. But the point of this story
Mhm.
is in the at the start of my graphic design career, every time we worked together, you were a hard nose. Your feedback was never, it was always, this is shit. I don't like it. Go and redo. Or you just bring your laptop and want to show me amazing logos and you say, this is the kind of thing you're expecting to see, right? But I literally was just starting out. But I personally I am one to take feedback really well. But I know not so many people take feedback can take feedback like that. I'm curious to know how you've evolved your giving feedback and or if it has even changed at all.
Well, definitely it has changed. 100 level is what, 9 years ago? I think that was 2011. So if if there's no change in 9 years, then that means I'm not growing. I'm not learning anything. So that has definitely changed. My feedback is still solid. It's still firm, but with a lot more kindness to the way it is delivered. Initially, it used to be very brutal, very cutthroat, and straight to the point. Like the thought just hits my mind, and I just say it as it comes to my mind. Yeah, this is crap. But now that has changed. The style is more, and I have Andela to thank for this. There was a lot of influence from something Andela called ask. Make your feedback ask. Actionable, specific, and kind. So now the feedback is I see something that needs improvement. I see what you've done here. This is what could be better. This is what you have done good. And these are the areas I think you need to look into, or this is something you should research on. This is a topic you could deep dive into. If I have resources or materials to help whoever do a deep dive on it, say a blog post, a Wikipedia link, or by the way, I'm very eager to send someone a Wikipedia link. If there's a blog post, a Wikipedia link, a tutorial somewhere, take a look at this. When you do, let's discuss. The goal for me here is not to tell you what to do, but to show you that I think it could be done better or done in a different way. If you go through and read up some of these things and do some personal research and you don't agree that that should be the case, let's discuss. That's the whole point of saying let's discuss. I saw maybe I saw Netflix implement this algorithm a certain way from what you're recommending. What do you think? Okay, let's talk about Netflix, their specific use case, why they did it that way. Does that use case apply to us here in this context? Should we follow them blindly, or should we, let's discuss and deliberate why my recommendation is or isn't okay.
Yeah. I remember um sounding like a really smart person when I used when I used this ask thing in one of our meetings at Sterling Bank then. And it was you actually mentioned it to me. I think we were talking about feedback and it made so much sense. And since then I use it. Actionable, specific, and kind feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you said something there about how Andela inspired that thinking, right? Something else I'm
Yeah.
curious to know is what your biggest career inspiration is.
Well, sometime in 2008, just about wrapping up secondary school, I thought I would go into nuclear or theoretical physics. That is something I thought I would end up studying. At the time, I liked physics. Of the three sciences, I liked physics the most. It was very relatable. I could put wire to a battery and a light bulb turns on. Or and then I had this Nokia J2ME phone. I think it was 2100 or 2700, one of those things. So I was browsing through the then Wapcard.mobi type of sites. Whatever the Wapcard.mobi, something the Wapcard.mobi, the Morph.mobi, things like that. And I saw an ad. I can't remember if it was a Google ad, but I know I saw an ad. And I clicked on it. It took me to a page advertising to get a new computer, blah 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 blah. And I came back to the website. I refreshed the page. I saw a different ad. At the time, I didn't really know these were ads. I saw a different thing in that same spot. So I went on Google, realized it was ad, realized that people were making money from that. And almost immediately, the thought in my head was, how do I create my own website for the sole purpose of displaying this ad and making money? At that point, my motivation was to make money. There was no I want to learn how to be a developer. No, like then the word developer or software engineer wasn't really a thing. The closest you'd get a web designer or a web developer. Yeah. So I went on this site called Quackit. I think it's still there. It's still alive till today. Quackit.com. I started learning HTML, putting together some ugly looking pages together with pink and green, red colors all over the place. But fast forward 2 years into that, I had gone through HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, ASP, Cold Fusion. I don't know if people still do Cold Fusion. Cold Fusion, ActionScript 3. I realized, okay, PHP is the easiest route for me to go, and I could build websites, get paid. Well, I never built a website that I could put ads on eventually, but I started building websites for people, freelancing, contracting. Now, the switch from freelancing to a more structured career around software development or software engineering happened sometime in 2014, 2015. At the time, we're working with Gorgeous Card, trying to build a customer loyalty program or software, a SaaS setup. For mentorship or inspiration, I wouldn't say a person per se inspires me. I mean, there are few people I admire. There are few people I say, okay, yeah, this is good. I like to be at this level or even surpass this level. I like to contribute meaningfully like this to the world. For one, it is more often than not an overlooked thing in software development. The creator of Git, I think that's Linus Torvalds. Git is something so, for lack of a better word, and I hope the devs listening to this don't kill me. Git is somewhat inconsequential when you think about the entire software life cycle. But without something like Git, the ability to share code or a lot of other things that have been built on Git would be impossible or very painful to build. GitHub, GitLab, CI/CD pipeline, some automation, things like that. But this person built Git and put it out there free. And because of his work, others can build things on top of it. Others can build new systems, new technologies on top of it. I admire the obvious Gates of this world, the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, more than just how much they've amassed financially in this life. Yes, I would like to make money and be a billionaire as well. But beyond that, a lot of things have been possible because someone like Bill Gates created Windows, which I started learning my development on. If there was no Windows, a friendly GUI, maybe someone else would have created it, or I would have had to go learn what a terminal operating system that's based on Linux or something. Or the ease with which I can deploy apps in minutes now because Jeff Bezos thought it good. Well, may or may not have been him alone, but the buck stops at his table. So the success is his, the failure is his as well. he thought it nice to create something like AWS, so I don't have to worry about actual machines connected somewhere with internet supply and electricity hosting a website. I could just spin up an EC2 instance in a matter of seconds or minutes, deploy a site, and I'm good to go. So for career motivation, I wouldn't say one person per se, is a few people in different strata of the entire ecosystem.
Fair enough. And I think I've always known your love for you. You did mention your Mark Zuckerberg. You've always liked Mark Zuckerberg. You forgot him.
I have a love hate relationship with Mark Zuckerberg.
Still on the top.
On the one hand,
Yeah.
yeah, on the one hand, I admire what he has been able to achieve in at, for lack of a better word again, at such an age. Let me not say young
A
age, because I
relatively
think,
young age.
yeah, relatively young age. But on the other hand, well, okay, I'll just leave that thought there.
Fair enough. Still on the topic of mentorship and stuff like that. Your generation of software engineers are some of the earliest who had him. When I think about that era of web design, you see posters everywhere in Abuja. Learn how to be a web designer for 10K, 30K. When I think about that
Yeah.
era, I think people like you are the OGs now. I do you think, with what you can see, do you think the developer community in Nigeria is fostering something like that? Because sometimes I see it and it feels like there's a lot of individuality. There's external people trying to, the Facebooks coming in and setting up hubs, and CC Help trying to make things more. But it feels like there's very little mentorship, for lack of a better way to put it, from people in your era, from the time you started developing, from the time you started software development. What do you think? First of all, do you agree with that? And if you agree or disagree, what are your reasons?
This is a tricky one. One wrong answer or choice of word, I think I'll be labeled a gate. Mentorship is something I enjoy doing, but what most people, well, let me not say most, what I think some people don't know is a lot of mentorship has to, it's the responsibility of the mentee, not the mentor. It's not my responsibility to go look for who to mentor. My responsibility is to be available to mentor. It's not my responsibility as a mentor to tell you specifically go study X or go look at Y. It's to guide and coach. Like, you should, I see the mentorship thing as having that person where you could go to when your bounds of knowledge or research has been reached, or having that person to go to and bounce two ideas of and get their perspective on it. You want to implement something, you the two ideas or solutions seem viable to you. You can't see maybe downsides or possibly dangerous edge cases about either one. That is where a mentor comes. Hey, what do you think about this? The reason why you speak to a mentor at that point is because of the person's experience. They may or may not have worked with that same scenario, but there's a chance they have worked with a lot more scenarios to draw knowledge or inference from, to tell you this could lead to this kind of outcome and this could lead to this kind of outcome. So it's not I don't see it as a structured learning curriculum. Like, I could say, okay, I'm mentoring you. Week one would study A. Week two we do B. Week three we do. I don't think that's the case, and I don't. I should be the case. Also, more often than not, people would send me messages on Twitter or LinkedIn. Hey, I'm a new developer. I'd like to be mentored by you. I'm like, okay, cool. What do you think I should learn? I'm like, wow. Let's say, what are your interests? Where's your head at? What do you want to achieve with this? I do that basic conversation to try to establish interest and possibly best fit. If I do that, first off, this takes time. It takes my own personal time. And while I don't complain about it, you tell the person, okay, from these are discussions, I think maybe you should look at Rust, or you should look at JavaScript, or you should look at Python. And you're like, okay. And they disappear. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, the person is just gone. And they are okay, they are fine, because you see one or two tweets here and there. You tweet something and they like it or retweet it. Like, were you serious about it, or you just wanted to keep a line of conversation open between two of us? So for me, mentorship is a lot of it is the responsibility of the mentee, not the mentor.
If we are going to try to address the problem of mentees, I mean, it almost sounds like a very straightforward thing, right? Mentees
Mm.
relate better with your mentors, but is there? Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what the relationship between a mentor and a mentee should be? Maybe like throwing a little anything else outside, say what you've spoken about, or maybe just expand on that a little bit even.
It's not lost on me that some people uh who are perceived as mentors can be elusive or hard to get in touch with. It may be a function of personality, it may be a function of their schedule, it could be a combination of both. It may be that they are just not interested in mentorship, and either way, it's fine. You cannot force anybody, and you shouldn't try to force anybody or guilt trip someone into mentoring you. If they don't want to do it, then it's their call to make. They don't want to do it. To address the problem, I'm struggling with what the problem is exactly. Because on the one hand, it might be hard to get mentors. On the other hand, the mentees have a relationship to essentially maintain or uh, they have the responsibility to okay, let me frame it this way. If you're success if you're successful because of the actions of a mentor, it is to your gain. So if your mentor is busy or he's not responding as fast as you'd like, it's okay if you send him another email or send him another chat or a tweet. Sometimes DMs are crazy. People may not read all DMs. Sometimes Twitter doesn't even show a DM if you're not following the person. It to be somewhere in message request. If you don't actively go there yourself, you won't see that someone dropped a message from months ago. So for mentor mentee relationship, I think both parties have a part to play, but I would shift a little bit more on the mentee to try and make that a successful relationship.
You had earlier spoken about how you almost always send anybody a Wikipedia link when you're trying to explain a concept. You've sent me a lot of
Yeah.
Wikipedia links, and one thing is true. You actually even mentioned one time that you sometimes go to Wikipedia and click on random just to read something new or discover something new. Now, what I find
Yeah.
interesting is, or what I'm curious to know is how you finding or enjoying such different interests. How do you think that seeps into your work? Like, can you articulate a situation or a moment where what you've learned outside of, say, typical development work has actually positively like influenced your work, work.
Right. About that, I did just that today. I went on Wikipedia, clicked on random, and I happened to fall on something called permafrost. I didn't know such a thing
What is
existed.
it?
It is an area of land that's frozen for years, 2, 3, or more years. It remains frozen. So the soil or a an a part of the soil is frozen, like ice frozen. So the molecules of water or whatever are contained in the fractures or fissures inside the rock or the soil is frozen. Now, permafrost can stay frozen for years. They can trap harmful microbes while they are frozen, and these things will be perfectly preserved because in that kind of state, they don't decay, they don't react. They are just in a what's the word now? Hasis or hiatus or something like that. They just remain in that state for years. But with the increasing climate change and global warming, some of the permafrost are beginning to thaw. And as they're thawing, they're releasing microbes into the organism, which could lead to death, diseases, tragic land events or earthquakes or whatever. Now, I wouldn't position myself as an expert on the topic based on a Wikipedia article I just read today. But you see how I can give you a little insight into something so random. This is what this is how it feels to me. I know that well, I may know a lot of things about tech. Definitely not everything there is to know about tech, but I don't want my knowledge to be just a single source, single direction. I want to be able to contribute to conversations in whatever limited capacity. When people are talking about world economies, even though you don't have something to say, you can understand and relate. If someone tries to if someone tries to sell you crap, you could be like, no, I don't think that is true. And you have something to back your position. Now, Wikipedia may not be the best and most accurate source of information because Wikipedia is written by other people. But then again, Wikipedia is peer reviewed. So somewhere in my head, I think even if it's one person that wrote this, if an expert on this topic reads this thing and something is false, they would edit. So if it is a peer reviewed system or a peer reviewed site, to some degree, I think I can trust the information I'm getting there. Except when I'm presented with a counter information that holds true or presents true or much more correct than what I have, and it's very easy to change my position. I'm not glued to knowledge. If a new stream of information comes that counters that, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I shift my position.
And one of the final questions I would like to ask is I've always viewed a diversity as a good thing, right? Like working in an environment where people from different cultures converge and work from. I always believe that in your case, for example, where you have to work amongst people from different ethnicity, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to when I actually move to Australia and actually work from Australia. But I'm curious to know in your eyes now have you noticed to be some of the things, some of the benefits of being in an environment like that?
Um, well, there are a couple. For one, you get to interact with different kinds of people. You get to know different cultures or experience different cultures firsthand, not just something you read off a book or watch on a TV screen. You could be at a friend's wedding. It could be a very native wedding, Pakistani wedding, Afghanistani wedding, Indian wedding, this type of things. And they may be happening right here in your backyard or just down the street, and you could see that. If you're invited to such a thing, it's really eye opening because it is nothing that you're used to. It's nothing that you've seen before, except you've already seen something like that before. You get introduced to different kinds of food, a different perspective of people's thinking about religion, thinking about sexuality, thinking about government, thinking about sense of person, sense of self. There's one way one group would think, there's a different way a different group would think, and since you're at the converging point between these two, you can hear both sides. I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was even a thing, or this was even a possibility, or I didn't know this kind of thing was possible. People do things like this. But one thing to keep in mind is, or one thing to have at the back of your mind is to keep an open mind. There'll be things that would shock you. You'd be like, oh, okay, I have never seen or heard about that in my life. So this is new information. What do I do with this new information? What do I do with this new information? Keep it, discard it. It's up to you. But if you walk into those kinds of environment or culturally diverse place with a closed mind, a lot of things would just fly by you. You wouldn't experience, or you wouldn't enjoy the diversity around you.
That's an interesting
For
thing.
something more close to home and relatable is, for the most part of my life, I lived in Nigeria, between Abuja, Lagos, Minna, and all over the place. I don't know a single place in Nigeria that I would say, if you walk down there, if you go down there, you're going to have Pakistani meals.
Yeah.
But there's a Pakistani restaurant just 2 minutes walk from my house. There is a Greek restaurant less than 5 minutes walk from my house. So you could wake up one day and be like, what do the Greeks eat? I don't know. Let me go find out. You walk in there and they give you some souvlaki and like, I don't know if I like this or I like this, or I'll try it again. Yeah. That's more close to home. That's more relatable. That's truly how nice a diverse environment can be.
I hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast. You can follow us on Twitter to know when new episodes drop. Our Twitter handle is @DropTheFilter, and I've been your host, Silas Sombayu. Catch you on the next one.